Come on in, come on in. Come on in. We have a super, super important conversation tonight. It's going to be much needed. You know, if there has been any pandemic, you know, I know we talked about many times about the, COVID and the pandemic with COVID and how it was worldwide, and the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, or the drug epidemic, the AIDS epidemic. There's been something so catastrophic that has affected the world. It's affected the world. And so everything turns out, again, to be a pandemic. But the one thing that is elusive, that you find, that is like, it's a worldwide issue. And it's been discussed in many different platforms, especially with single moms or even single dads. But it doesn't truly get the recognition that it deserves to be given. When we are dealing with absent fathers, when we're dealing with these children who weren't asked to be here, and they got to deal with the mess, they got to pick up the pieces from a father who was never at the house. Or even worse, a father who was physically there, but not emotionally. These are the things that we're going to talk about. These are the things that we are going to do our best to tackle head on, because it needs to be addressed. So I hope you guys are ready. Hope you guys have enjoyed your weekend. I have enjoyed mine. I have relaxed. I'm chilling. Getting myself ready for the work week. Hope you guys are getting yourself ready for the work week. But super excited about tonight's topic of conversation. So without further ado, y'all, we're going to address absent fathers in this F.I.R.M. Pressure podcast.
Fresh. What up, world? It's the F.I.R.M.
Let's get it. Welcome to the F.I.R.M.
Oh, it's about to go down.
Set your schedule. Eastern Standard Time.
Saturday Nights Live for a time that's one of a kind.
Woo-wee. There's nothing off the table, no trolling. We go from politics to religion to relationships to whether or not you like crunchy or soft tacos.
Woo! Forget about a love language. What about your love level?
Oh man, we excited for this one.
On all social media platforms.
So make sure you follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Fellowship in a righteous manner. That's the banner.
With your hosts, FLAVIUS and ULISES. We rolling Eastern Standard Time. What's going on? What's going on? What is going on? Welcome to another edition of the F.I.R.M Pressure Podcast. Hope you guys are doing well this evening. I'm doing good. Life is good, people. I've enjoyed this weekend so far. But if you have not already, if you're on Facebook, and if you have not followed the F.I.R.M page at the F.I.R.M 365 24/7, we encourage you guys to go on the page, search the page, make sure you hit that button, make sure you hit that follow button, and make sure that when you're given a chance, go ahead and like this video. Go ahead and love this video. And most importantly, don't forget to share this video with you, your loved ones, your mama, your cousins, your aunties, and all them. Make sure y'all go ahead and hit that notification bell. Make sure y'all hit that button. For on YouTube at the F.I.R.M 365, make sure that you do hit that notification bell. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. For those, if you can't be on Facebook, you can go ahead and go live on YouTube. We are there. We are live. We are in color. If you're on Instagram at the F.I.R.M 365 24/7 is where you'll find us on the Instagram. And we're still working on TikTok, y'all. Still working on TikTok, but we will be there and soon as we can. And if you had the opportunity with this conversation, the way that it's going to go, hey, y'all, we hope y'all comment. The algorithm starts picking that comments up. And next thing you know, we're hitting up everybody's timeline, including people on your timeline, saying that so-and-so commented on the F.I.R.M Pressure Podcast. And maybe it'll make them curious. Who knows? At the end of the day. But how are you guys doing this evening? As for me, I'm doing well. I'm doing good. Can't complain. Like I said, had a good weekend, man. Had a very, very good weekend. Relaxed. Didn't do too much of anything. Just getting some things taken care of. Just the responsibility of life. Car issues. Getting myself ready for some things coming up in upcoming weeks. But outside of that, though, it's been nice and warm in Northwest Florida. I think today was like 90 degrees a day. What's going on, young lady? Hope you are doing well. But 90 degrees a day, we are doing good. Still beach weather. I got to get myself back to the beach before the weather finally breaks, like sometime in December. Sometime in December, man, the weather's going to break. But it is what it is. But I cannot go further. I'll be amiss without saying, where's FLAVIUS at? Where's the cuter guy? Where's he at tonight? Unfortunately, he can't make it tonight. But he does send his well wishes to the family, and hopefully we'll get him back on next weekend. And so with that being said, the show must go on, y'all. We must continue to have these conversations, continue to get ourselves to have these hard-hitting conversations. You know, that there is no firm pressure podcast without the pressure. So we gotta go ahead and have these conversations. And tonight's topic of conversation, just in case y'all haven't seen it yet, y'all will in a minute. Absent fathers. Absent fathers. You know, we look at this, you know, the damage that results in the child's life can be it's tough. Just because a father isn't present. Some of the questions that we're going to engage in tonight is there any excuse good enough to justify a father's absence? We're trying to hit all across the board here. What we don't want to do is what we want to do. I should say, what we want to do is have a mature conversation. We want to have a mature conversation about the absence of fathers. We want to have a mature conversation about the effects or the side effects of an absent father. What it does to the kids, what it does to the parent who now has to deal with these kids all by themselves, right? So we got to have these conversations because it's super important. The idea of an absent father. The first thing that I want to say about when it comes to men is we as men, like, we got to do better, right? That's the first thing that I want to say to the audience that is listening and those that will listen afterwards. We have to do better as men. It's one thing where you're kind of like dealing with your own issues, dealing with your own struggles, and whether you purposely or an accident brought a child into this life, into this world, it is not the child's fault, right? That's something that everybody can agree to. It is not the child's fault. The child didn't, come out of nowhere and was like, I want to be birthed by the girl that you're sleeping with. No, it's the whole process of the whole process. I ain't going to go into it. But we just have to do the better. We just have to do better, and we just have to be better. So I just want to put that out there first and foremost. The idea of an absent father is not just physical, but it's also emotional. It's not just emotional, but it's also spiritual. An absent father doesn't mean that there is no father in the house. You can have a father in the house and still be absent. You can have a mother in the house and still be absent. Because you're not there emotionally and you're not there spiritually. So I want to definitely make that the first statement of the evening. An absent father is not just physical, but it's also emotional and it's also spiritual. What's going on, Darlene? Hope you're having a good evening so far. So we have to be able to be honest about that conversation. That I can be in the same house with my kids, but not be there all at the same time. We got to have that conversation. Super important. The absent father. We know the damage when it comes to the relationship between the mom and the dad. We know that there are certain cases where the mother is just being difficult, the mother is just being irrational, and the mother is the one that's doing their best to sabotage the relationship with their dad. So there are cases out there for sure. And that could be for another show, for another time. What we want to deal with tonight specifically are people, are men who just did not, has not, and will not show up for their kids. The absent father. What type of issues do these absent fathers have? Like what is their main, like why are they choosing to be absent? Why are they? It's always the question, right? Like why do they not want to be a part of their child's life? What goes on through a person's mind that they justify why they're not in their child's life? And what you'll find is that most of the excuses got to deal with the fact that they don't have a good relationship with their mom. That's always going to be their go-to reason. I don't have a good relationship with the mom, and they begin to justify or excuse their behavior. The absent father is coming from a place, and here's the honest truth, coming from a place of selfishness. Regardless of the relationship with the mom, that legally a woman cannot keep the child away from the father unless the father is shown to be irresponsible. Drugs, violence, take your pick. But if you are neither of that, and all you are saying is, oh, I don't want to see my child because of X, Y, and Z, then what we're dealing with is a level of selfishness, a level of pride that is not hurt. It's hurting you internally, but to understand the fullness of it all, you are hurt. You are damaging the emotional and the mental state of your child. One of the things that an absent father may be dealing with is avoidance. They don't want to deal with conflict, so they avoid the whole situation. They don't know how to handle conflict resolution. They don't know how to have emotionally mature conversations. So instead of dealing with these things, what they would rather do is hide. Instead of dealing with it head on, they would rather run and make excuses, justify everything. So for those that are listening in the comment section, if you have or been or dealt with or counsel people when it comes to being a single parent, how do you handle dealing with the irresponsible parent? Because it's not just absent fathers too, right? There's plenty of stories where there's absent mothers, and they deal with it. They deal with it through drug-related issues, physical abuse, sometimes the other type of abuse. I'm trying to be mindful with what I say because I don't need Facebook censoring, but it's a super important conversation to have. Dealing with the baby mama or the baby daddy. What have you noticed about their behavior? What have you noticed about the single parent, not or being a single parent? What have you noticed about the dad that is like, that causes them to be absent? Do you see avoidance in their behavior? Do you see a deeper problem? Maybe they don't want to deal with responsibility. What's going on, Tati? Maybe they don't want to deal with responsibility. Avoidance is a big thing. Maybe they don't know how they just don't deal well with conflict resolution. Maybe they're so narcissistic in their behavior that everything that they do is always the right thing, and they always have somebody to blame, which is you, as the mother, as the father. Why is it so hard to get the other parent to see that what they're doing is wrong? Why is it so hard for the absent father to admit that what they are doing is actually hurting the situation? Because we hear all these excuses. We hear, oh my gosh, this craziness. We hear all the reasons and justifications why I'm choosing not to be in my child's life. One of the biggest reasons and excuses that you'll hear is, well, the baby mama, she won't let me see my children. So therefore, I'm not even going to try. She is not allowing me to spend time with my kids. She is setting all these different rules and all these different regulations that are now in play. So she's the reason why I can't see my kids. So therefore, I'm eliminating all responsibilities of seeing my child. I'm eliminating all responsibilities. So they no longer fight. They no longer fight for the child. They feel like they shouldn't have to fight for the child. And there's a sense of truth to that, but it's based off of context. Because what we don't need is a bitter mom or an angry mother who's just refusing outright to do her best to ruin the relationship with her kids, with her dad. And then you got to fight for it. You got to push for it. You got to go to court for it. It's a drawn out process. But any good parent knows that whatever it takes to maintain that relationship, to work on that relationship, I'll do whatever is needed. I will do whatever is needed to have that good relationship with my child. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to give up easily. So for the right for just to no longer have my child in my life, I'm going to fight for that. But when you are a mother, when you are a father who is willing to work, and the truth of the matter is that they are the ones that are making things difficult, that they are the ones that cannot keep their word. How many times have we dealt with that? How many times have we dealt with somebody saying, oh yeah, I'm going to pick up my child on this day, on this time, and then the day before or the day of, they cancel? What's going on, Dale? What's happening, man? Welcome. Sorry about your Cowboys tonight. But they make excuse like they cannot, for whatever reason, keep their word. That's what makes things so difficult, right? That's what makes things so difficult as that parent who is handling all the business with the kids, handling school, handling the doctor, handling their behaviors. Because let's face it, what we find is that when we have single parent homes, sometimes you're going to be dealing with behavioral issues. You're going to be dealing with mental traumatic issues, because it is a traumatic experience, especially if this child is used to having a father at the house, no matter what the age is, whether there are 3 or whether they're 16. It's going to affect the child. And one of the things when it comes to dealing with children is having that hard conversation with them. You know, being in positions to where I had the opportunity to speak with kids, it's always a tough conversation to have. Because for the most part, these kids are looking for validation. You know, they're looking for love. They're looking for that affirmation. There was a statistic, a couple of stats that one from a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly. I think it was like something like 80% of children who stay in church is because the father is the one that brought them to church, versus 40% when the mother takes them to church. That's the power of having a man in the house. A good man. let me make sure I say that. That's the power of having a good man in the house a good father in the house, that 80% stay in church because it was their father who brought them in. Another stat that I found is that based off of 2022 census, 1 out of every 4 households was a single parent household. 1 out of 4 was a single parent household. And in those single parent households, 71% of those kids ended up becoming a high school dropout. This is a 2022 census statistic. 71% ended up becoming a high school dropout. Another high percentage of those became homeless or runaways in 2022. And the most shocking of statistics is that 60% of the youth coming from single parent homes unalive themselves end of their life because there was not a father in the house. We as adults can become so selfish in our dealings. We can become so selfish in how we operate that we don't think about the children. I know it's that whole running joke. Think about the children. Think about the children. But in this case, we really need to think about the children because of the things that they go through, the things they have to deal with. One of the things that you find that we find ourselves, in that conversation is trying to explain to them why the dad's not there. And that's tough. That is tough. That's a tough conversation to have. Any single parents that are in the chat willing to share, like, how did you deal with having to answer these type of questions with your kids, with your child? Because we all know that eventually they're going to ask. They're going to ask because of the evidence of the father not being in the home. And a couple of things that we got to look at is, how do we explain that? One of the things for sure is that we got to let them know up front that it's not their fault. Right? Because unfortunately, especially the younger kids, for anybody who has kids, y'all can attest and y'all can testify that most of our children believe that the world revolves around them. When they can't get their way, when you tell them no, right? The world revolves around them. That's how they feel because it's just where their mind is at. Nothing wrong with it. But it's also the same when it comes to feeling some form of blame as well. Did my dad leave because of me? Did my mom leave because of me? What is it that I could have done something? I should have said something. What could I have done? The only way to process, especially at a younger age, is that because for the most part, all they're thinking about is, what did I do? So we have to not just let them know, hey, it's not your fault. But we got to be repetitive. And when you're being repetitive, one of the things that we as parents got to make sure that we don't do is get frustrated or start to lose some level of patience. We have to be willing to tell them every day if we have to. We have to be willing to affirm every day if we have to. We must. It's not your fault. And I'm going to tell you why it's not your fault. We have to teach them at a young age, whether they're 5 or whether they're 15, is that you are not responsible for how somebody else reacts. You are not responsible for their feelings. Unfortunately, we got adults who are more immature than a 5-year-old when it comes to their emotions. Unfortunately, we have adults who take the kids' innocence and they manipulate it. And that's like one of the most frustrating things, that I've seen and that I feel when it comes to parents and their kids. Is taking advantage of their innocence. Taking advantage that they do not know any better. Trying to pit them against the other parent. And all they are looking for is validation. They just want to know that you love them, that you accept them. So when they begin to ask these questions, y'all, like, we have to be very careful how we answer it. Do our best to simplify it. Right? We do our best to simplify the answer without getting into all the details because they'll get lost in the sauce. We tell them like, hey, sometimes adults get into fights and adults no longer get along, and sometimes they got to separate. We try to simplify that answer. And then we tell them, but we love you. It's not your fault. The whole nine. We have to remember to validate their feelings. Another space that we should not get frustrated with or lose patience over. Again, whether they are 5 or whether they're 16, we cannot lose patience with these kids when they are asking these questions. We should not get frustrated because we as adults, because again, the hope is that our mind is mature enough to process certain things. And we cannot allow your anger toward the other parent to affect the relationship that you have with your kids. I'm a big proponent on therapy. Getting that professional help. get that professional help. If you are hurt, if you are angry, if you are bitter because, hey, what's happening is not fair, I have to take care of all this, I got to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing all of this stuff, and they are just living their life void of responsibility, not paying child support, not calling out, not a nap time to check on the kids, to even check on you. We ourselves cannot get angry. We cannot get bitter. We can't get angry or bitter when the other parent is sitting there trying to destroy the relationship you have with your kids. When they lie about what's going on, when they deceive with what's happening. We have to process this stuff because your child, your children need that healthy version of you. They need that healthy version of you because as adults, we are supposed to have a way of processing what is happening better than what a child does, than what a teenager does. We also have to look at the bigger scope and be like, you know what? Even though your father may not be around, look at who God has surrounded us with. Is the grandfather present in their life? What about coaches that are stepping up and walking in that authoritative role that they need? The Bible says to spare not the rod unless you spoil the child. Spare the rod, spoil the child. That has nothing to do with whooping them. It took me some years to figure that out as a parent. But, sorry to my kids, but I used to whoop them, for sure. But as I gotten older, as I got more mature, I've learned that sparing the rod, spoiling a child has nothing to do with whooping them, but everything to do with authority. As a shepherd goes around taking care of his flock, he uses the rod to reel them back in. He uses the rod to watch over them. If you spare the authority, if you spare the protection, if you spare their safety, their security, you will ruin that child. And it's a lot to ask for as a single parent, but it needs to be priority. And one of the easiest holes to fall into as a single parent is the one of selfishness. Is the one where I deserve some freedom too. I deserve to go out like everybody else do too. You know what? I'm too tired to deal with this mess. We cannot fall into that trap. Because if you spare the authority, if you spare the security, their safety, if you spare the godly authority, I ain't talking about authority like you better do as I say, even though there is a measure of that for sure. But the spiritual authority, if you disregard that, then we find ourselves in situations where we're trying to figure out, how did this happen? Is it a sacrifice? Yes. Because we're looking around other people and we're seeing them with two-parent households, or we see, mothers who were grown kids, or who just have a better handle on things, where they're able to go out, do things, whatever the case was, and this is what we want to do, and we're looking at it from a selfish standpoint. I've seen single parents. I have seen single parents leave their children at the house so they can go to the club. I've seen single parents leave their kids at home so they can go on a date with so-and-so and not come back till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Young kids. Fending for themselves because of lack of responsibility, and they pretty much just become a whole level of selfish. As a single parent, you hurt too. Get that help that you need. Get that help that your children need. Get that help. Let's heal from the damage that's been done. Let's heal from the devastation that it caused. Let's heal from that. Because even though absent fathers may have all sorts of reasons, justifications, the whole nine, there is no excuse for being absent. Unless, again, and this is a topic for a whole other show, just that the mom is just being bitter, being angry, and is just refusing for the dad to see the kid. We hear stories about that all the time too. We've heard some very emotional stories about men who've had to completely go to court and fight for the child, and then eventually they end up getting full custody. Had a conversation with a guy a couple of months ago, dealing with that same thing. Left, went to court in Alabama, came back with full custody of his child. But the hell he had to go through, and the hell that mother's got to go through to not just have the physical safety of the child, but also to try to maintain that emotional safety, to do their best to protect their child. All because the absent father is choosing not to step up to his roles and responsibilities. The absent fathers come around and they justify it, saying again, the disconnect between the relationship between them and the mom, which it happens. They end up withdrawing from the whole situation completely because they don't know how to handle conflict resolution. You're looking at conflict avoidance is a big thing. Instead of dealing with the problem head on, they would just rather not deal with it, period. hide in a little corner, and end up hurting that child who, for the life of them, can't figure out why, as a father, they're just choosing not to be in their life. They see it. You got some absent fathers who see it as a optional. They see it as an option. I don't have to financially take care of my kids. I don't have to see my children. They'll be all right. They justify in their head, well, because I don't have my life all together financially, so therefore I can't spend the weekends with them. I can't take them in for the summer, but I'm not going to do it, but they'll be all right. Meanwhile, the mom is struggling at the house, struggling with them at school, struggling with them when it comes to behavior, struggling with them when it comes to social activities. Because some of these kids, the way they process stuff is through depression. They're walking around depressed. Again, the stats from 2022 is that 60% of youth who unalive themselves come from single-parent homes. So even at that young age, we cannot dismiss how they're feeling. Oh, you ain't experienced nothing in life. You don't know what life is. You don't know what real problems is. We have to take their feelings. We have to let them know that we validate how they feel. I understand you're angry. Let's talk about why and how we can do anger management. Yeah, you're going to have to learn these things, which it's going to cause you to grow up a little faster than what any of us would like, because nobody chose to be a single parent. And as that parent, let's not struggle with the fact that you were with this person. I counseled somebody years ago that was so angry with themselves. He was a single dad. He was so angry with himself because he was like, man, I knew it. It was a whole generational curse, a whole generational thing, because his mom was a drug addict. His mom chose the party life over him and allowed his dad to have full custody. And for years, one of the things that these children deal with is abandonment issues, right? They deal with abandonment issues because they were obviously abandoned. They not only do they deal with abandonment issues, but now we got to work how we can navigate that and how we can talk about that and how we can handle that, how we can really bring them to that place of healing. And that's a whole process in itself. From abandonment issues, then now we're talking about attachment issues. the fear of not just that the dad left, but that you might leave. And you can't go nowhere. You can't do nothing because they're the way that they process stuff. The damage that's being done. And so counseling this guy that was dealing with abandonment issues, that was dealing with attachment issues, years later, ended up marrying somebody that was just like his mom. And the same thing that happened to him happened to his daughters. And part of that is because he never dealt with his own hurt. He never dealt properly how to process everything that happened to him so that he could make better decisions in the future. So he had to deal with that guilt, that anger and that frustration of all that nonsense. Felt like he could have avoided that, felt like he should have picked somebody better, but at the end of the day, it happened. So learning how to forgive yourself, learning how to move on past that, learning from your mistakes so it doesn't happen again. Got to go to therapy for it. Got to seek that help for it. I promise you it will benefit your life. And most importantly, you guys, I want to end it with this. How do we as parents, as believers, how can we as believers and as parents teach our children about a father who would never leave them, never forsake them, when all they know is the example of the earthly father? We as parents have to pursue that spiritual relationship with God, or for our own self. Because the way that I teach my children, the way that I talk to my kids, may not work for your kids. God will give you the wisdom and how to talk to your kids. He will give you the wisdom and how to teach your kids about who God really is. A God that loves them, a God that validates them, a God that that treasures them, a God that will never leave them, a God that will never disappoint them, never forsake them. We as parents have to get to that place ourselves. To know that God is always faithful. To know that God has my best interest at heart. I need to be fully persuaded of that for my own self before I can go and try to tell my kids the same thing. It's the responsibility of me as a dad to seek God for myself. And I have, in areas in parenthood, I have failed. Areas that I could have done better in, that I knew I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. There are times, especially with my kids being adults, One is 25, the other one's 20. I've had to go back and apologize to my kids for my behavior. I had to apologize to my kids for the things that I should have done better. God's not asking for perfect parents. You're not expected to be perfect. But the phrase that I live by and that I go by and I apply to pretty much everything that I deal with in life is that it's not about perfection, but it's about effort. What I didn't know then, I know now, and I must put that effort in to make it right, to make it better. If I truly love my children, I must be an example of what humility looks like. I must be an example of what love looks like. I must be an example of what grace looks like. To love my children in every which way that I can. To put that effort in. To make sure that I give my children what they need, not what they want, right? But what they need. And everybody, especially kids, they need love. They need that unconditional, the unadulterated, that raw love. They need a parent who they can trust. They need a parent that is willing to be transparent for the kids. Hey, I made mistakes, and I want to apologize for all the things that I've done wrong. I want to apologize for my behavior in this area. I want to apologize for my behavior in that area. Being transparent. Your kids need to know that you're human too. They need to know that you have fears too. They need to know. And as the chat says over here, that it is never too late to do the right thing. You're absolutely right. While there is breath in your lungs and while there is breath in your lungs, there's hope. Take it from me. There's hope. There was a time during my separation and my divorce that my kids completely cut me off. 8 months, 10 months. For 10 whole months. Maybe longer than that. I didn't hear from them. It was tough. For those who know me know that I love my kids. For those who knew me prior to the separation, I was always with my kids. My kids were always with me. Circumstances happen that I could say for a whole other time, but regardless of what those circumstances were, I didn't hear from them at all. For 10 long months. And it hurt. It hurt. It was bad. Went through a serious depression because of it. But the one thing, and I shared this with somebody just the other day, regardless of how hard it is to be a single parent or even co-parenting, make sure that you spend time with your kids in a way that it will leave memories that they will never forget. Memories that they will never forget. Take them on that trip that you've been hesitating to go on. Take them on that road trip. Take them to that amusement park. Give them memories that they will always remember. Because in that time period where I had no communication with my children at all, God kept telling me, your kids are coming back. Because the outside forces may have convinced them to make a decision that they thought was good for them. But the one thing that they will never forget is the memories that you created with them. I was an active father, going everywhere, doing everything. I was the fun parent, but also the disciplinarian. They were scared of me for sure. Daddy got a temper, but I was also the loving one too. To this day, they come to me before they will ever go to anybody else, because they know that I will love on them. They know that I'm not going to judge them. They know that I'm not going to get angry with them. They know. Why? Because of the memories that God allowed me to create with them. There are many reasons why a father will be absent. But let's be bigger than the absent dads, absent fathers. Trust that until God brings you somebody who can be a great father to your kids, that God gives you the wisdom, that God gives you the strength. The wisdom and the strength. Because He's given you those babies, He's given you those kids for a reason and a purpose. And the same God that will not leave them, that will not forsake them, is the same God that will never leave you. He uses things that happens to draw us closer to Him. That's what He allows things to happen. He allows it to happen. But it's because He's given you the wisdom and the strength to pull through, to be that parent that your children need, to be the voice of reason, voice of counsel, voice of wisdom. All right? But all right, fellas, ladies, it is past somebody's bedtime. Ooh, not really. Hope you guys have enjoyed this topic of conversation. And yes, our children are a blessing from the Lord. They are a blessing from the Lord. And let's take care of the blessings that has been given to us. So as they say, if somebody gives you a gift, we always say thank you. So so let's thank the Lord for the gift that He's given us. Let's thank the Lord for the wisdom that He's going to give us, has given us, and the whole nine. But you are so welcome. You're so welcome. Y'all also have a great week. Y'all also have a great night. Hopefully y'all have a blessed week yourselves, and hopefully, moving forward, for the rest of this week, that God continues to give you the wisdom, the counsel that is needed to deal not just with the kids, but with life in general, right? So is Flav okay? Yes, Flav is fine. Flav is fine. He just unfortunately just could not be with us tonight. But he hopefully will be with us on next week. So with that being said, y'all have a great night. You have a good night as well. Until the next time on the Firm Pressure Podcast. Y'all enjoy this week. We love y'all. We appreciate every single one of you guys again for joining for such an amazing week. Such a powerful time of great conversation tonight. So with that being said, you guys, we love you guys. Y'all have a good night. And if y'all can, please stay out of trouble. All right? We don't want to hear about no phone calls from a jail cell, needing some type of bail, postings, or whatever the case is, because y'all want to act crazy over the week. All right? All right. Y'all be good. Talk to y'all on the flip side.
Fresh.
What up, world? It's the F.I.R.M.
Let's get it. Welcome to the F.I.R.M.
Oh, it's about to go down.
Set your schedule. Eastern Standard Time.
Saturday Nights Live for a time that's one of a kind.
Woo-wee. There's nothing off the table. No trolling. We go from politics to religion to relationships to whether or not you like crunchy or soft tacos.
Woo! Forget about a love language. What about your love level?
Oh man, we excited for this one.
On all social media platforms.
So make sure you follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Fellowship in a righteous manner. That's the banner.
With your hosts, FLAVIUS and Ulysses. We rolling Eastern Standard